unique exhibition.
Kiev, one of the largest cities in the Soviet Union. But this month, thousands of its citizens have been flocking to meet a very special British family, the Goodwins. British life today is at the heart of a major multi-million-pound political and trade initiative by the British government. The Goodwin family, visiting Kiev, are direct descendants of the Viking inhabitants of Jorvik. Because the same York company, Heritage Projects, created both. Their particular expertise didn't go unnoticed when the Foreign Office were planning the Kiev project.
We'd seen the Jorvik Centre and something of their other projects and found that these gave the display, or should give it, a credibility, because we want people to come into this exhibition and feel that they are experiencing the real Britain, not just a mocked-up show, but something which actually is the type of environment in which ordinary people live.
The exhibition includes a semi-detached house, a typical high street shopping centre, the British at work and at play, and tying it all together, the family.
What we want now is to focus in on the sort of family that we can produce that will enable us to show people in Kiev a typical British family.
So first view is going to be from this side.
It's got to be a sort of
Yes.
frozen in time.
I mean, obviously the dog's distracted you from where it is. It sort of made some sort of noise or whatever.
And I'm taunting it with this drain cover, going, ha! Yeah.
No.
No.
And because of the particular audience that we're talking about, which is another culture, we felt we wanted to look at a family as the theme to our particular exhibition.
The big problem I've got is the names that we actually will give our family. Now, with the mother, we have Patricia, Barbara, Anne, Sandra, Pamela, Pauline, Jean, Jacqueline, Catherine, Sheila. A lot. I mean, I don't think a lot of those names just I don't think are going to translate particularly well.
No Smiths, no Jones, no. We know very common names, and they would probably translate, I imagine, very well. They're very snappy. But I think it would be nice on this occasion to make a gesture. And Goodwin is an Old English name, and it means good friend. And that would be, I think, quite a nice touch.
Yes, it's a very nice sort of message.
Goodwin it is.
One more bucket's needed and that's it.
You just need one on there and done.
Lynn, can you stick your fingers down the back of your neck? Just... Oh, lovely, thank you, dear.
Now, would they, in fact, keep a dog in the household if they were?
All depends how old it
Depends
is.
whether mother works full time, I suppose.
That's a major problem.
And we're indicating a reasonable sized garden, aren't we,
Yeah.
at the rear of the house?
So I think Heritage have made the case for the dog. What are you going to call it? We've been through names.
good
You've
grief.
got a list like
The dog's names.
What the name depend upon the breed.
It's all based on fact, but obviously from then you have to then make certain sort of artistic decisions as to the characteristics of the family, what they actually look like as such, but again based on information that we could find.
I mean, it's the last time this bra needs using, so you can pull that.
I've written it anyway.
Oh, you're so rough, Sebastian. Hang on. Right, I can bring my hands up a bit. Thank you. Okay.
How's it for you?
Wonderful, darling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
After a scene reminiscent of a medieval torture chamber, the body mould of what will eventually become Mrs. Anne Goodwin is finished. But there's still a long way to go. Elsewhere in the heritage workshops, the High Street set is beginning to take shape. Everywhere, work that would normally take months is being crammed into weeks as the deadline to transport the exhibition out to Kiev gets closer.
Which is the press day?
No, press day's 29th at the moment. 26th is when we said we're going to have all the shops up and window displays.
And there's 4 of us working on it now, you know.
I'm going to go and sort this out.
Yeah, if you can fend the shop fitting off, I'll be happy. If not, we're going to have to allow some time after the fit-off time, that's all.
I think it's quite a different kind of exhibition. Although it is a temporary exhibition, we are using the sorts of techniques that make things feel real. We're using sound, we're using smells, we're using portrait figures, we're using reconstructions, each of which try and give, so that when people move into, say, the High Street, they're actually moving into what is, in all intents and purposes, a high street. And I think that's the important thing, that's the difference between this and the sort of an ideal home type exhibition. It's quite a bizarre process making the figures. One of the team usually models for the body and the hands, but because we're using actors and actresses whose pictures will be seen in other areas of the exhibition, we then have to sculpt their faces and add them to someone else's body. Sometimes you feel a bit like Frankenstein.
But Frankenstein never paid the attention to detail that's become one of the hallmarks of heritage exhibitions. Creating the authenticity is a painstaking process, but the end product is designed to stand up to the closest scrutiny, and everything that can be done to improve the reality is done. Even the eyes used in the figures are the same sort of false eyes used in the medical world. Six members of the heritage team will between them produce a total of 21 figures, 3 dogs, and a cat. For actress Anne Majors, a first chance to come face to face with her new identity.
I'm not quite sure whether I really do look like a brand. I'm not sure that I'm flattered, but I think they're beautiful, yeah.
I'm very pleased they've got some clothes on now, though.
Well, yes, am I.
It's awful just going around the back of yourself and seeing all the sort of folds coming out around the bra and everything. It's horrible. Yeah.
The Goodwins' 18-year-old daughter Emma is in real life actress Rachel Collison.
Come and have a look through the front. The hair's really nice, isn't it? Looks so different on the model compared to the nose and everything. It's sort of, I don't know, definitely sort of more me. Well, I think it is anyway.
Yes, I think it is too. I think it's odd, this portrait thing. It's so easy to lose a likeness, isn't it? Yeah.
February, 3 months to go, and a first chance for the Foreign Office to see the physical results of their earlier discussions.
These are 3 dogs. Golden Labradors.
It's come out extremely well,
isn't it?
Very good indeed.
This is the one which is having the lead put on it, so that was the first one that you'll see.
Yes, so one of the whole sort of objects of this, obviously, is to show to people of Kiev how we have pets, keep pets, look after them.
Yeah.
And I think these do it extraordinarily well.
The dogs will also provide an opportunity for sponsorship, a vital element, because everything from dog food to the clothes that the figures will be wearing has to be obtained. Although the sponsorship deal on offer isn't exactly the usual one.
The basis of the exhibition will be one of, based around the family, and there'll be a family group that you'll see in various aspects of life. You'll meet them in the first area, you'll see them in shopping, you'll see them in their home, you'll see them at work, and you'll see them at leisure. So that, if you like, is the basis of the exhibition as such. And the area that we're particularly interested in is in the house for sponsorship. It's very important that the people do feel that they're looking at a credible house and not looking at a show house, and I think that is really the important.
Yes, the lived in.
Yeah.
And we'll give you the new products, and you'll make them look lived in and used, will you? We'll sort of wear them down a bit to make them look a bit more lived in.
Cheese graters are very good, very useful for such things.
Well, that sounds okay, as long as the labels can't be seen.
Throughout the project, we have been up against a mammoth problem of not having enough hours in the day to pull the thing together. At the moment, we're bang on schedule. We're on the last lap now. It's going extremely well. We can only hope that we don't hit problems when we get out on site.
Just 4 weeks to go, and Carlton Fox, who've been contracted to actually build the exhibition, now have the job of creating a part of Britain in the Soviet Union.
There's a tremendous feeling of excitement and enthusiasm throughout the whole team. And this is one of the very, very strong elements that's carrying the project forward at this stage.
Oh, slap.
Hi.
How you getting on?
Okay. Sticking everything
I'm standing on top of the gigantic dome.
I don't take one of those home.
Really
Quite sure.
Go round again.
Less than 24 hours to go, and everyone's lending a hand. Even the managing director of Heritage is discovering new skills, much to the amusement of the locals. And this isn't how the finance director is normally seen.
That was really frustrating, because I glued them up in the first place, and forgetting the vinyl was there, and walked away. When I came back, and it was Nezhazny, I think it is the unlucky.
At the end of the day, everybody gets stuck in, from vacuuming to knocking nails in to... It's the final touches, which are so important with an exhibition like this. Do it from behind, up there, and then twist it around. Okay.
Marvellous.
Thank you.
Steve's going to come and do the wiring, and I'm going to go and do footprints.
Right.
All right?
Okay, because you don't like wiring.
No, because I don't like wiring.
Okay, yeah.
I think yet I do.
Yes, I do.
Nervousness is always there. It's always there. But I'm now reaching the point where I can't do any more. You know, I think it's as far as you can go. The show opens, and that's it.
It'll be all right at 10 o'clock tomorrow morning, won't it, Michael?
What's it supposed to be?
White sauce.
White sauce?
Yes. So it's sort of grey.
It wants to flow more, doesn't it?
Does it? You haven't met my cook.
What we have is the ability of making ideal situations look real. So we're not building an ideal home, we're building a real home. And we want to make it so that it looks like people have actually just moved out of the space and not just sort of like a normal exhibition. I think it's quite a different kind of exhibition.
Sorry. Everywhere. So, across the chat. Well,
no, you haven't got enough.
The choice of people here I was a bit like a real estate agent here going through all this lot, sort of saying, well, look, here's the space, and it was basically almost on a first come, first served, and Marks & Spencer's got in fairly quickly, and so did Boots and W.H. Smith's, and that's how we built it up.
It's very difficult because we've had to approach sponsors and ask them for clothes, ask them for goods for the house, and then we've got to tell them that we've got to distress those goods, that they can't appear in this exhibition in the pristine condition that their manufacturers would perhaps first wish. We've had to scrumple the clothes up, we've had to throw them into laundry bins, we've had to make the kitchen look as though a family have used it for the last couple of years.
The final touch to the kitchen scene, and the end of a complex and at times downright bizarre process.
To put an exhibition of this size up in the 4-week period that we've had, just over 4-week period we've had, I think it's just been quite fantastic. And they've been a great team, there's no doubt about it. I've got to the point now where I can't see anything anymore, you know what I mean? It's sort of, we're there, we're ready, and we will open tomorrow.
The exhibition uses a whole range of techniques. This high-tech video wall shows one aspect of British life, leisure.
It's a tremendous moment now, and we can't wait for the public to actually come through the doors and to see their reactions. They're going to be bowled over, there's absolutely no doubt about it.
Exactly 1 year after work first began in York, the British Life exhibition is finally opened in Kiev. And certainly the first official visitor seems suitably impressed. Outside, even the weather has a British feel to it, but that doesn't deter a queue of thousands of Soviets eager to experience British life. For the heritage team, this is the moment of truth.
Look at that little girl. Doesn't understand or believe, does she?
How can you explain to a child?
Yes, right. Look at them round the clock shoes.
Shoes. But we know, we've seen the shoes in,
Yes.
in the supermarket.
Yes. See, they will only have seen those on television or in films.
She's a small kitchen.
Small kitchen?
Small,
you think
small
our kitchens are small?
Yes.
What do you think about...
Like many Kiev families, Sasha and Lena Bilkin have read and seen a great deal about Britain. But travel outside the Soviet Union is rare, so this is the first chance to see the reality.
I don't know where to go first. I can't imagine myself, inserting a credit card into that slot and taking the cash from the other slot. Well, I simply don't have any experience in that.
Sasha, let's go there. Huh? Let's go there. I like the shoes, all the pairs of shoes. You see, I don't remember when I bought a pair of shoes at our shop last. I never do it. I always buy my shoes while my clothing at the so-called black market, which the prices are twice as in state shops.
I wonder how you can choose something with this variety.
I forgot about the kitchen. I'd like to see the kitchen.
Okay, here it is.
Yeah.
I know the kitchen is your weak point.
I would like to have so many appliances, kitchen appliances. Microwave.
Microwave.
We don't have.
It's our dream to have one, but but never thought that this kind of mess is possible in British family. The magazine is totally different from ours. That's why they're so attractive for our people. They just want to touch its glittering and glamorous paper. That's why they're simply curious, I think, to know what the magazine looks like. You see, food is only 15%. Totally different. I think we'll have to try to do the same with our budget.
By Kiev standards, the Bilkin family is well off. Their joint salaries are roughly 1,200 rubles a month, £120, which is 6 times the average wage. But their lifestyle is very different to that a comparable family would have in Britain.
The first difference is that they very rarely live in separate houses. We usually live just as we do in blocks of flats. Very rarely, all members of the family can have separate rooms. Well, the ideal variant for a Soviet-Ukrainian family is just as we have, 2 rooms for 3 members of the family. The room we're in now serves both. So at daytime it's living room, and at nighttime it turns into bedroom. And the other room is our kids' room.
What struck me most is the liveliness of the exhibition. Some people they know so little about Britain, and they want to know everything, about the way of life, about, well, I think everything.
Sounds. But anyway, I feel like I've visited Britain for an hour yesterday.
An indication of the prestige attached to the exhibition was the visit by both the British Prime Minister and the Ukrainian President, promoting the spirit of glasnost.
When the idea first arose, glasnost was just beginning in the Soviet Union and perestroika and the interest in the West. As we've developed the exhibition, so the interest in the West has grown. I was here in February last year, and this place was an empty tin shed. And at that time, we had the idea that we were going to fill it, possibly with the British High Street, possibly with the British House. But I never, ever thought we would see something on this scale, this size, looking this realistic. Nor did I think that we would have this reaction from the people of Kiev that we're getting. We've got a fantastic reaction.
In many ways, it's worked better than I would ever have hoped for, because the thing about an exhibition is that there comes a point where it actually has a life of its own, where it takes over, the exhibition takes over, and it only takes over when the people are actually in it. You know, it made no sense until these people were walking around it and being part of it. It's been a good project.
your exhibition showed what a civilized can and should have in the 20th century. So I don't think we will manage to have that in the 20th century. So that's what we can hope in the 21st, maybe.
A declaration of sovereignty. Under the declaration, it assumes the right to its own army, currency, and citizenship. It also gives Ukrainian laws priority over the Soviet constitution. The move follows street demonstrations where Ukraine's former president, now Mr. Gorbachev's party deputy, Vladimir Ivashko, was likened to Romania's deposed dictator, Ceausescu.
Later in this news, a slump in consumer spending, the biggest downturn in retail.
Been learned from history and nothing, it seems, forgotten. On the spot in Lvov, it's a battle royal. A platoon of formidable Orthodox ladies defends the cathedral against the marauding outriders of Catholicism who want their cathedral back. It was a lady, one of the Orthodox bishop's Praetorian Guard, with her counterclaim to the cathedral, who reminded me that religion, politics and history are as explosively intertwined in West Ukraine as they are in Ireland. It is, the Russian Orthodox insist, a religious war. 3 weeks ago, the Pope urged the Ukrainian bishops visiting him in Rome to heal their local breach with the Orthodox. Communism's collapse has allowed Pope John Paul to dream a dream of ending the great schism between Rome and Byzantium, between Catholic and Orthodox Christianity that dates back to 1054. The dream is bedeviled by the inter-Slav rivalry still festering after 400 years. And on past form, the valiant survivors of persecution will have told him, yes, Your Holiness, we hear you, but we want our churches back.
We've always defended their right to be recognized and to have their buildings returned, starting with St. George's Cathedral, which is their symbol. We hope this can be achieved without ruining the ecumenical work we've done with the Russian Orthodox Church. It could be difficult to reconcile both things, we agree, but that mustn't stop us.
In Lvov's Church of the Transfiguration, returned to Ukrainian Catholic hands in October, priests and nuns were being updated on church doctrine and policy after years in the wilderness. For almost half a century, the outside world has passed them by. The meaning of Vatican Council reforms, of the Church's opening to the modern world, of ecumenism, have to be taught to Ukrainian Catholics locked still into their battles of yesteryear. A void has to be filled.
I think the problem is much, much graver than people realize. The persecution of the Church, to a certain extent, kept the believing Christians together. It gave them a certain sense of identity, gave them a certain sense of purpose. But the Church has to be able to show now that she's got some of the answers to some of the deep questions people are asking. Marxism as a philosophy is finished, as you say. That war is finished. It's been shown that it doesn't work. The thing that you have in many of these countries is a big void now. And what's going to fill that void?
Restoration, as here, but in all senses of the word, is not enough, for the ancient quarrels racking the churches in West Ukraine are not unique. Communism in Europe has burnt out, but from its ashes, long-suppressed ethnic conflicts are being rekindled. It is an old, sad picture that manifests itself anew. And looking ahead, the Church sees other dangers should capitalism cry victory and, in its turn, indulge itself in extremes of exploitation.
Quindi la seduzione, diciamo, delle idee fondamentali
The lure of fundamental ideas hasn't gone away. It's a great challenge for the world and world leaders to protect those who demand justice, and rightly demand it because they live in such awful social conditions. It's a great challenge to give them an answer, to prevent them being tempted to choose this other solution. So yes, it is a victory, but to end with Latin, juxta modo, not a total victory.
And on the very field of not quite total victory, a graceless thought. Communism, the secular oppressor of the church, united Christians above all here in Poland and kept secularism itself at bay. Now that old enemy of the church is free to pursue its wicked ways, as it has done in the West, secularism growing as prosperity grows, prospering with worldly consumerism. How well will the faithful resist now that they have shed their chains?
David Sells there on the Vatican's diplomatic endeavours. And now some of today's other main news stories. Foreign ministers from the two Germanys and the
search for new politics to replace the one-party state controlled from Moscow. But in a parliament including members who would have been thrown out by Lenin, the communist majority is still trying to stall the independence process, voting for sovereignty in principle but against it in practice, queuing up to ridicule opposition candidates for president. And the nationalists accept that independence could take time.
I think that for realistic proclamation we have some hard work in the future. I think that it will be possible maybe after 1 or 2 years.
But the pressure outside continues, pushing for independence that's more than just a piece of paper. And in a general election for president, Levko Lukyanenko would be hard to beat. The former inmate of Brezhnev's gulags is now a hero in a subject state, trying to charm its way into being a country. David Loyne, BBC News, Kiev.
North Korea says an offer by South Korea to open the border between...
Wholly uninformed about this affair. They remember that they were asked during the British strike to contribute a day's pay, around 20 rubles, to the strike effort. But individual miners, questioned now, say they never knew exactly how the money was taken, nor it seems did they ask. But with the latest news filtering through from London, the Soviet miners are suddenly in questioning mood. At the headquarters of the Miners' Union in Moscow, the saga is the subject of intense discussion. And all are agreed on at least one issue, that the money was intended for miners' families, not general funds.
Of course, there was no question of the money being for a trade union or a fund. The money was for the striking miners of England.
We're very angry about this. If we give our money, then it should go to the people who need it most.
Soviet miners held a one-day anti-government strike only last week. They are much freer than they were in the mid-1980s and much more independently minded. They have their own questions now about the money given in their name. Justin Webb, BBC News, Moscow.
Is being drawn up, which President Gorbachev hopes will defuse the mounting campaign for independence by the nation's republics. The latest to declare its sovereignty is the Ukraine, the second largest Soviet republic, where many people are now pressing for a complete end to rule from Moscow.
A mock funeral in Kiev in memory of the political career of Vladimir Ivashko, the former head of the Ukraine and now President Gorbachev's party deputy in Moscow, seen from here as the foreign capital of an imperial power. Over the parliament, they fly the Ukrainian national flag. Many MPs are opposed even to sending a delegation to Moscow to talk about a new treaty. The loss of the Ukraine would be a far greater blow to the Soviet economy than the loss of any of the smaller republics. It's the breadbasket and powerhouse of the USSR, with most of the known coal reserves in the Soviet Union, producing a fifth of manufacturing output and half the nation's sunflowers. Close to Kiev lives a man who's the conscience of the new Ukraine. Levko Lukyanenko studied law with Mikhail Gorbachev, But since then, he's spent most of his life, 27 years in all, as a political prisoner. His Republican Party supporters lobby MPs all the time, pushing for full independence. These are days of optimism in the Ukraine as they search for new politics to replace the one-party state controlled from Moscow. But in a parliament including members who would have been thrown out by Lenin, the communist majority is still trying to stall the independence process, voting for sovereignty in principle but against it in practice, queuing up to ridicule opposition candidates for president. And the nationalists accept that independence could take time. But the pressure outside continues, pushing for independence that's more than just a piece of paper. And in a general election for president, Levko Lukyanenko would be hard to beat. David Loyne, BBC News, Kiev.
India have won the Texaco Trophy, a trend.
Russian youngsters from Chernobyl have arrived in Britain for a month-long holiday during which they will undergo medical checkups. They're all subjected to radiation when on the 26th of April 1986, number 4 reactor at the Chernobyl nuclear power station overheated, causing an explosion which released highly radioactive material into the environment. But it wasn't until 2 days after the disaster that people in nearby towns evacuated their homes. Well, that meant millions of adults and children suffered irradiation, and the true extent of the catastrophe is only now beginning to unfold.
Well, we're joined now in our Birmingham studio by Dr. Od.зб, chairman of the Ukrainian Medical Association, and by one of the children, 10-year-old Oksaka Zhiriebko. Good morning to you.
Good morning.
Thank you very much for coming in to see us this morning. Tell me, Dr. Mulka, how's the holiday been going so far?
Well, it's going great guns. We were lucky with the weather yesterday, and we went out to the zoo, and we went on a little sort of shopping expedition for sweets in the morning, and the children enjoyed it very much.
Now, the children who are actually over here just now, they lived very, very close to Chernobyl, didn't they?
Yes, they were in the highest radiation zone. Some of them were only a matter of 3 miles downwind of the nuclear reactor on the first and second days of the explosion. So they've had the highest dose of any children anywhere.
They weren't evacuated immediately. Do we know what sort of implications that's going to have for the future? Is it only now that we're beginning to find out just what's going to happen to them?
Well, the implications are obviously that the longer they stayed in the radiation zone, the longer they played outside in the streets, the more radiation they got, and the health risks for the future are greater. There's never been an experiment like this on children that's been carried out, an accidental experiment on their health, and we're constantly worried about what might be the effects on their health in the future.
Because I know Oksana's got a twin sister, and she was actually unable to come over to Britain because she's not well. Do you know what's wrong with her and whether that's a result of what happened at Chernobyl?
I don't specifically know what's wrong with her, except that she's not eating very well, she's not putting on weight, and she feels tired, which are the sort of symptoms that many of the children who have come over have to a lesser extent. So it may well be the effect of that.
And you were saying that the children were actually playing the couple of days after what happened there, after the explosion at Chernobyl?
Well, they were certainly playing in the morning, because Saturday morning in a Ukrainian town like Pripyat, where most of them came from, is a normal working day, and so they would all have gone to school and they carried on as normal. And the true implications weren't really told to them until the following day when they were evacuated suddenly on Sunday afternoon.
Can you ask Oksana what she remembers about that time?
Оксана, що ти пам'ятаєш про ту неділю, як вас евакуювали?
Тоді, коли сталася Чорнобильська АЕС. Тоді моя мама була в школі, і вона прийшла і сказала, що в Прип'яті сталася аварія. Ну, і тоді почали виселяти людей. Тоді через декілька хвилин ми побачили, що їхало дуже багато автобусів. Ну, і то виселяли людей з цієї зони.
The first thing she remembers is that her mother, who was a school teacher, had heard that there'd been an explosion. And the next thing she noticed was a lot of buses who were actually busing people out of the very closest zone. And in fact, they had to put people up for the first couple of days themselves because they were at the edge of the danger zone until it was realised that they were also in a danger zone, and subsequently everybody was evacuated.
Well, Dr. Mulka, they're over here on holiday, as you said. They've actually been visiting the zoo as well. I believe we have some pictures of them. Here we can see them. They're coming up.
Oh,
there they are. Can you ask Oksana did she enjoy the zoo?
То вона тепер питає, чи тобі подобалося на зоопарку, ти можеш сказати по-англійськи. А зараз скажи, як вони.
Казати?
Зачекай ще.
What did you like best?
Що тобі скажи тепер.
I like zoo very much.
That's great. I'm very glad. That's wonderful. What sort of things does she want to do specially when she's over here? Is there anything that she wants to do?
Що ти хочеш найбільше робити, як ти тут в Англії є?
Подивитися, як люди живуть.
To see how people live. Ще що?
That's great.
Бавитися з дітьми нашими.
Бавитися з вашими дітьми.
And play with English children.
Oh, good. That's good. And she can speak some Russian to them, and that'd be great. And they can speak some English to her. That's brilliant. Dr. Milka, what really, if people are watching this, what can people do for the children of Chernobyl, the people who've been affected by this? Is there anything that we in the West can do practically to help?
Yes, in fact, today is a particularly auspicious day because later on the children are going to go and meet the Mayor of Nottingham, where most of the children are staying. And he, I've heard, is going to start a Chernobyl Lord Mayor's Appeal Fund in order to be able to help the children by providing them with things whilst they're staying here, but mainly to also provide money to send back to the Ukraine. Although Russia was partly affected, the main effect of this explosion was in the Ukraine and Belarus, where millions of people have been irradiated. And what they're hoping to send is medical supplies, because not only have they got the problem of the radiation from Chernobyl, they've also got the problem of AIDS, because they can only produce a small number of disposable syringes a year, and the need for disposable syringes is very high. So what they do is reuse medical equipment and try and sterilize it, and that risks passing on AIDS. So the kids that need the sort of help and investigations are in fear of actually getting an even more dreadful disease from the doctors themselves. So what we're hoping to do is to start off by sending them some, and hopefully also spur the government perhaps, because whilst we've already sent 1 million syringes, they use 10 million syringes every day, so it's only a drop in the ocean. But if perhaps the government could see its way to using some of the peace dividend to help these children, it would be only a small thing for them, and it would be a marvellous gesture for the children of the Ukraine and Belarus.
Dr. Milka, thank you very much indeed for coming in. I think the horrors of what happened at Chernobyl are only now beginning to become apparent. And of course, thank you very much, Oksana. Thank you. Spasiba. Goodbye. Thanks very much.
Bye-bye,
До свидания.
Bye-bye.
She's a sweet little girl,
Lovely.
isn't she, Oksana? We hope Oksana and all her other little friends from Russia enjoy their trip to Britain. We'll take a break.
Programs on the ITV network. Now we continue the series on the history of the USSR, Red Empire.
December 1927. When the 15th Congress of the Communist Party opened in Moscow, 10 years had passed since the Russian Revolution. The Bolsheviks had grown from a clique of revolutionaries into a ruling party. The delegates came to discuss what to do with the power they had consolidated over the old Romanov Empire. At the top of the party, Lenin's death had left a vacuum which, at first, none of his colleagues seemed eager to fill. Lenin's idea was that no one person should succeed him.
The senior ranks of the party, students of the French Revolution to a man, were obsessed by fears that a Napoleon would arise, take over the party, betray the revolution. Just such a threat appeared to come from the flamboyant leader of the Red Army, Leon Trotsky. None of them realized, however, that the real threat came from the man in control of party records,
the man they called Comrade Card Index.
Comrade Card Index was the nickname